Good morning, everyone. It's really lovely to see this great group of people. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jenny Goldleaf. I'm the Carrot Project's Development and Communications Coordinator. And I'm just really excited that this has all come together. As a lot of you know, every year in the spring and the fall, the Carrot Project usually does a farm tour, either in Boston or elsewhere. And many of you have attended them in the past. So this year we realized that we needed to figure out something a little different because we're not about to be visiting people in person. So we decided to do a virtual gathering instead, which I actually think is going to be a really great way to connect with folks who we wouldn't maybe be able to visit in person because they are all over New England. So this is very exciting. Obviously, a big reason that we're all here is because we care about the success of small businesses, of small farmers, and their roles in our local economies. And of course, questions about food security and food production, small businesses, the food chain have all been huge questions recently. And at the Carrot Project, we've been fielding a lot of questions about how the businesses and the food producers that we work with are being affected or handling this, and what kind of questions they're asking. So we thought this was a perfect opportunity for folks who've been supporting the Carrot Project to hear directly from farmers and food producers. So I'm so happy that we have the chance to talk to and three amazing farmers who are working in Vermont, Massachusetts, and New York. So a pretty good cross-section of New England and the people that we work with. And they'll be sharing a little bit more about how they've been responding to the pandemic and what this season has been like for them, and what challenges it's held. So first off, a huge thanks to Jen and Meg for making the time to be with us this morning. I know we're here because it's a crazy time, so I really appreciate you being open to joining us. It's amazing. I also want to take a moment to thank the folks in the room who have been supporting the Carrot Project. Your support makes a huge difference for us, especially now, to be able to respond to our clients' changing needs and make sure that we can keep doing this work.
I should say I'm Dorothy Suput. I'm the founder and executive director of the Carrot Project. And I'm just going to talk briefly about what we do, remind people what we do. And for those people that are on the call that are new, there's a few new people. I'll tell you what we do. And thank you all for being here. And thank you particularly Megan and Janet. It's wonderful that you've taken the time out of your day to be here. So we at the Carrot Project, our goal is really to be sure that farms and food entrepreneurs will be here 5, 10, 25 years from now. That's what we want them to do, or we hope that they can succeed. And we fulfill that specifically by providing and helping with tools and resources that can set people on the path and allow them to realize their goals. And Jenny mentioned many of the reasons that we want farms and food business to succeed. You know, they range from healthy food to just open space, farmland, protecting farmland, environmental health, and things like that. So what we do in a nutshell is we're business advisors. We offer, we really are focused, I should say, on financial management and access to capital. And we help farms and food businesses develop the resources, the skills they need, basically to be able to use their finances, financial management and financial information to make strategic decisions about their businesses. So how we do that and where, we focus on Southern New England and the Hudson, New York. And most of our businesses that we work with, they're in the first few years of operation or they're undergoing some major transition. Most of our clients are low to moderate income. And really what it amounts to is, we're business advisors and we're working with people on everyday kinds of things like financial record keeping, applying for a loan, making decisions about expansion, should they enter a new market, pricing, etc. I would say that our hallmark work is kind of the one-on-one business technical assistance that we do. Where it's, really just sitting down with people in their kitchens or wherever they are, and helping them figure out what they want to how to reach their goals. We also have training programs and a loan program, and together with all of those things together, we work with about 65 businesses a year. And then we also reach hundreds of others through workshops, webinars, and financial resources that we have online. So we think that this work, helping farm and food businesses gain the critical skills they need to succeed, is so important to realizing goals around growing the local farm and food system, that we've struck out to do more than just work directly with farm and food businesses, although that is plenty. What we've done is we've helped to build a network of organizations that are doing similar work across New England and the Hudson Valley. And the goal of this network is really to address the lack of skilled business advisors and to increase funding specifically for one-on-one business technical assistance. So what that means is that we're investing in professional development, and we're doing advocacy, or start doing advocacy to increase federal and state dollars for this work. So I'll just end by, as you know, you guys, this crisis, the pandemic, has highlighted the plight of small businesses, and farms and other agricultural businesses are an incredibly important part of that puzzle. So I'll just, let's turn it over to our three guests and learn what they're doing in the face of COVID-19. I hate to say that I'm excited, but I'm excited to hear from you guys. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks.
Thank you, Dorothy. So our first panelist is Meg Galeucia, who is at Abode Farm in New Lebanon, New York. And she'll tell you more about this, but it's a draft-powered vegetable farm that utilizes organic and biodynamic practices. And I'm looking forward to hearing a little more detail about where the farm is on. It sounds very interesting. Meg is also a member of a goat dairy collective. She manages a local community garden, and she runs a small medicinal herb business called Shaker Mountain Herbals with her partner. And another connection with us is that Meg has been the Carrot Project's Western Outreach Assistant for the last 2 years, and she's been amazing to have on board to help us connect with farmers and food producers in Western Mass and the Hudson Valley, and also doing a bunch of research. So we're really happy to have her back for this. So I'll turn it over to you, Meg. I will unmute you, and the questions that Meg and all the other panelists are going to be responding to are these. One, how has Corona affected your farm? What have you been doing in response? Two, what are you still worried about, or what are you still trying to figure out for this upcoming season? And three, is there anything else that you want people to know about how this year is different for you or the other farmers that you know and work with? So with that said, take it away, Meg.
Thanks so much, Jenny and Dorothy. Thanks for inviting me to be here. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so there's so much to say on this topic, but I'll try to keep it brief and then can answer questions at the end. So as Jenny mentioned, I'm part of a farm called Abode Farm. We are a diversified veggie farm. We are growing on about 8 acres and are in upstate New York, right on the Massachusetts border. Right now, there are 5 of us who are working on the farm full time. Our main outlets for selling our produce are a CSA that we have an on-farm pickup for. We also sell at farmers markets. We have institutional accounts, including a school and a retreat center. We sell to restaurants, grocery stores. We provide a lot of produce to local food pantries as well, and some other wholesale outlets. So that's sort of the broad overview. And yeah, we've been infected by COVID in so many different ways. Many have been negative, but there's also some positive in there as well. 2 of the farmers markets that we had been participating in the winter season have been closed, and they've been shut down. And we were selling to a few restaurant accounts as well, and those restaurants are either no longer in operation or have very limited operations right now. The 2 institutional accounts that we had, a retreat center and a high school, are no longer in operation, so those have been shut down as well. We don't have those outlets. But we have been working as an amazing team. I love the folks that I work with. We've been adapting so well together, and a lot of us have been working together now for the past 4+ years. So we have a really strong team to be adapting. And I just want to give a shout out to everyone on my farm crew. So some ways that we have been responding are actually expanding our crops by 20% this year. This was sort of last minute, but we really were feeling the demand for local food, and we're trying to adjust our plans on the farm. And we're lucky to have a little bit of space to work with to be able to do that. We have been participating in a virtual farmers market. So these are cropping up all over the place in different styles and different ways, but one of which is happening in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, that was funded by a grant. And basically folks can order online and then they do a curbside pickup on Saturday mornings in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. And so we've been participating in that in the absence of the 2 farmers markets that we usually participate in. And we have been expanding our CSA incredibly. We are almost doubling the numbers of CSA shares this year. And that's been really exciting for us, how we've just had a lot of people reaching out. Some people who have said, I've been thinking about joining a CSA for 5 years, and this is the year that I'm going to do it. Or, I never quite understood what a CSA is, but now I really want to check it out and see what it's all about. And so that's been exciting to us, but also a lot of work and a lot of adapting, figuring out all the logistics that need to go into it. This year, we're going to be doing pre-packed CSA shares, and we're going to be asking that members will come wearing masks. They'll be coming into the barn, just 1 per household, to pick up their box, and it will be labeled with their name. So this is a really different style than we usually do. We usually have everything spread out on tables where people are choosing their own items from a list, and there's touching of different vegetables. You bag your own salad mix and arugula and that sort of thing. So everything is going to be really different for us this year. We're spending a lot of time communicating to both promote the CSA and get new members, and then talk through with folks who are both new and regular CSA members about changes that we're making, how we're going to organize pickup, how to make it safe, and really try to address the concerns of our CSA members from, folks who don't want to even get out of their car. We're going to be, delivering CSAs to some households and just doing like a sort of curbside, come and pick up your CSA box on the farm. And we're also doing a lot of subsidized CSA shares. So we've always had a focus on food access, and we've been able to both get donations from CSA members in the local community and also from a grant to provide over 15 free CSA shares to community members most in need. And we're working with a lot of local organizations to be able to select folks for that program.
Meg, this is your 1-minute warning, sorry.
Okay, goes by so quickly. So some things that we're just still worried about are, the CSA is expanding, but the economy is tanking, and how is that interest going to be maintained? Will folks have the same financial ability to participate? We give a lot of choice, as I was saying, in the CSA, and how will we maintain those parts of the CSA that people really like? We love doing community events and outings, and we're doing a lot more on social media, trying to connect to people, stay in touch, but how do we sustain that over time, and how do we create that fun environment of the family coming to the farm and doing U-Pick and everything that's so great about the community interaction? And then financially for our farm, we don't know what the cost of some of these changes are going to be. It's going to be a lot more time pre-packing boxes. We're going to be needing to buy more resources to make all of this happen, and it's hard to know what to expect. Same with the loss of farmers markets. While the virtual farmers markets are great, it could be a lot of income loss that it's hard to know what's going to happen with that, and if the outdoor markets will start up again this summer, we're not sure. So there's a lot of things that are up in the air, but we're trying to adapt as we can, and I'm happy to answer more questions about any of that at the end.
Thank you so much. That was really great. I'm sorry to keep you to time, but so it goes. Yeah, so folks, if you have questions for Meg, put them in the chat and we will come back to them in a little bit. So our next farmer, this is our farmer on video, be switching over to Kate Canney, who is one of the owners and operators of the neighborhood farm in Wayland, Mass, and actually the person that I get most of my produce from, which is really fun. Kate was a client of the Carrot Project a long time ago for technical assistance when she was considering switching over to or finding a different property for her current farm. So she worked with us to do some financial projections to help her understand what the different choices that she was about to make would look like. Her business model is an interesting one, and I think she will mention this in the video, but back in 2008, Kate began growing produce on a bunch of different garden sites located in private yards in the Boston area, which is why she's called the neighborhood farm. So they were working on borrowed land, on rented land, spread over 20 miles, which was a really interesting model, but one that eventually proved pretty unsustainable for them. So in 2017, they finally found property in Wayland, and they moved their entire operation over there. And now they sell at their farm stand, they sell directly to restaurants, and 3 farmers markets in the Boston area.
Tell me about yourself and the neighborhood farm.
We grow about 7 acres of mixed vegetables, a few cut flowers, and a lot of plants that we send home to people who want to garden themselves. And we lease this land from Mainstone Farm. This is our 3rd year here. Before that, we farmed on borrowed plots of land all through Metro West Boston. And we're really happy to have landed in a place where we can do everything in one location. It's a delightful change.
How has COVID-19 affected the farm?
In every way. All of our markets closed. We opted to close the farm stand because we didn't feel that we could operate it safely for either customers or staff. We have switched entirely to online sales. So we have an online storefront now. People can order online and they come at a designated time and they pick up their orders. We have it set out. They've prepaid online, so the entire thing is contactless and self-serve. It took a bit of doing to get an online store up and running in a really short amount of time, but it's going okay at this point. But it has changed the whole flow of things. We used to have the farm stand and go to markets. So now instead we have to pre-pack all the orders and sort of keep everything organized and sorted out. It's just a really different flow to our systems. And it's been challenging as well because we all have to do it from 10 feet away from each other in physically isolated spaces. So while we've been trying to improve the overall flow of the farm over the last 3 years since we got here so that tools you need all sort of are in the same place and things are grouped sensibly and people can carry things the shortest distance from A to B to C to D. Instead, we've had to explode all of that back out again so that now things are spread all over the farm so that people can work on different projects while being physically isolated from everybody else. And it's been an interesting change, but we're still here, we're still growing. The plants don't seem to have noticed that anything's different, so that is okay.
What are you worrying about, or what are you still trying to figure out?
We're trying to figure out what our farmers markets are going to look like this season once the summer season starts. It's definitely going to be different, but whether it's essentially what we're doing at the farm stand with pre-orders and pickups, or whether it's a version of a more traditional farmers market, we really don't know. So at this point, we're just taking it one day at a time and trying to figure it out as we go along.
Anything else you want people to know about how this year is different for you and farmers in general?
It's just really hard to predict. Because our sales channels are entirely different, because people are worried about going out in public and going shopping and going to markets, we are finding it really challenging to make a plan for how we're going to market our stuff and also to do things like budget, because we have no idea. Are people going to come? Are they not going to come? Is there going to be a second wave? Is there not? Are things going to kind of go back to normal? Is this our new normal? Because we don't have any of those answers, it's really difficult to put together a comprehensive plan for the season. And the plan that we had is completely irrelevant at this point. So we're just planting as much as we can, figuring one way or another people do have to eat, and we'll find some way to get to them. But we're definitely making it up as we go along.
Well, thank you, Kate. Thanks for updating the Carrot Project about the neighborhood farm during COVID.
You're welcome. Stay safe, everybody.
Yes, thank you very much. Take care.
You too.
Ray and Janet are one of the Carrot Project's earliest loan recipients. They both started in other careers, Janet as a teacher, including the, I believe, 2002 Vermont Teacher of the Year. In 2010, they took out a Carrot Project-backed loan for a tractor, one that made the most sense for their property and its terrain, its landscape. And I believe, though, Janet, maybe you can correct me, that that tractor is still on the farm today. Janet and Ray are in the cattle business. They raise Highland cattle on 210 acres and lease another 75 acres in Vermont and raise their prize-winning and extremely beautiful Highland cattle. They sell meat from those cows locally and compete with breeding stock and also sell that stock nationally. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Janet, and fill us in on...
My name is Janet Steward, and with my husband, Ray Shatney, we own the oldest registered Highland herd in the United States. We've been raising Highland cattle since 1967. And it is just my husband and I as the two-legged employees. But the real key to the operation is our 150 four-legged furry creatures who go to work every day, and they never have to be reminded what to do. They eat, they grow, they take care of their babies. Some of them go on to live at other homes to be breeding stock, and some of them go on to feed and nourish people in our local community. The tractor is still running. In fact, the tractor just arrived from Greensboro Bend to Plainfield because a load of biosolids arrived from Quincy, Massachusetts at 6:30 this morning that will be spread on some of the fields to enhance the soil and increase the hay production. It requires two tractors, and the John Deere that we purchased through the Carrot Project generally lives in Greensboro, and the Case tractor lives in Plainfield, but it takes two to spread the wood ash and the solids. One has to load the spreader and one has to pull the spreader. And so Ray will do all of that. We have definite skills, and driving a tractor is not one of them for me. So things have been very different with the COVID virus. It has changed most everything that we do. For breeding stock, people are very apprehensive about spending money on breeding stock with an uncertain economic environment. We can't have people come to the farm to look at the animals, to pick out the animals that they want. But the majority of the changes has been in our beef operation. The restaurants that we sold to shuttered, and all the product that we sold to restaurants, basically we weren't selling anywhere else and had never sought markets for them. And so some of that is becoming overhead instead of income. The demand has been sporadic. Some places are purchasing a lot more. Some we've had to change our protocol. The farmers market's closed. And I try to make lemonade out of lemons. And this has forced me to do something that I have needed to do for a long time, which is develop an online marketing presence and figure out how to do pre-orders and rather than individual interactions with people. I am not tech savvy. I have a very rudimentary process. I have a list of emails that I've been gathering, and I send out emails. It's incredibly labor intensive. For every order, it usually takes 3 to 4 emails. What is this cut? How do I cook this cut? how much is this one going to cost? What's my total going to be? Where are we going to meet? We do some delivery to homes for people who are self-quarantining. We drop off care packages on people's doorsteps that we know are not able to get out or are food insecure. As I said, I'm not very tech savvy, and that's where you come in. You probably didn't think I was going to ask you to do any work today, but I am. The work that you need to do is supporting the Carrot Project. Because I got an email the other day from the Carrot Project that said, if you are suffering or having issues with the COVID-19, we are offering technical support. Email us and we will have somebody who can assist you with new protocols and new initiatives. I'm an omnivore for learning. And as again, I said, I need help with technology. And I sent an email back to the Carrot Project, and instantly I received an email back saying there was someone who would speak with me on the phone and help me learn how to do an online platform that interfaced with my website. This is critically important. I need to be able to have more time to spend with animal care and supporting what Ray does instead of sitting in front of a screen 5, 6, 7 hours a day trying to help keep selling beef so that we can have our business. In terms of the future, we're hoping that the market stabilizes so that we can figure out how to manage the supply and demand. We did need to process an extra animal this week because we didn't have enough beef, but we can't do that forever. Cows only give us one baby each year if we're lucky. And we hope that we will have the right amount of meat so that we can keep supplying the local businesses. But mostly, we are incredibly grateful to Dorothy and everybody at the Carrot Project who offer this kind of assistance. It's free. I know it's not really free. I know it's because of you people that are donating and helping support farmers like me and Meg and other farmers who are struggling through this. I hope that this online change will allow us to continue to be sustainable in the new normal, whatever that is. And I hope that all of you will recognize the important role that you have in supporting small farmers, local people who really desire to help put food on the table for those who want healthy local food and for those that are food challenged. And I thank you for that. Jenny, if I can just add one thing again about the significance of the Carrot Project. One of the things that has been most frustrating is trying to access some of the assistance that from the federal government is supposed to be available for small farms and for agricultural situations and small businesses. Thus far, that has not been something that we have been able to access. It's been incredibly frustrating. Lots of emails, lots of hold time on the phone, and it has added to the stress incredibly to try to access what we are told is going to be available. And again, I will just go back to the Carrot Project. One email, one response, and immediately someone emailed me and said, I can help. Thank you.
Thank you. That's really great to hear. Our client services coordinator, Jeff, is also on the call, so I'm sure that he's enjoying hearing that as well.
Thank you, Myrna.
Fabulous. Well, this has been amazing. If you have questions, please send them in and Dorothy will pick through them. I'm also gonna turn this over to Dorothy for just a second before we get started to share a little bit about how the Carrot Project has been responding, though I think Janet has illustrated a lot of that very clearly.
Thank you, Jenny, and thank you, Janet. And for those of you that are listening, that was completely unplanned. We did not ask Janet to say that, and we are so busy right now that I don't think we even put 2 and 2 together. that was even a possibility. So thank you. Yeah, so I'm just going to talk very briefly. Janet kind of stole the show, but I'll just add a few details to kind of what she said so you get some context for what we're doing and how we're responding, and then we'll just open it up for Q&A. And I am happy to say that Jeff Cole is on the phone as well. He is our client service specialist, so he can add more detail to some of the specifics. So yeah, so normally at this time of year, farmers are turning to their busy season, and our kind of caseload, if you will, decreases. And this year is obviously different. And so over the past few months, we've been very busy. We started out Jeff started with listening sessions, just being available to hear what people had to say, responding in different ways. And I would say that the first feeling, and I'll be curious to know if Meg or Janet had this, was I felt like people were kind of varied somewhere on the continuum between paralyzed to completely frenetic. They were just like super, super busy, or they're like, didn't know what to do. Farmers being ever practical and dealing with all kinds of uncertainties that, always. I felt like that kind of passed fairly quickly within a week or two, and people just got to business of like, okay, I've got to get to work. This is what I'm, and try to figure out what to do and do the best they can. So what we did is we just opened up regular office hours. We have some business advisors on call, and as Janet said, a lot of those questions have been around marketing, and some have been around the federal program. But we've really just tried to make ourselves available for kind of urgent, immediate questions. And that was a pivot for us because we tend to think about long-term planning, long-term skill building, and things like that. But I'm glad to say it seems to be working. And so, but that also took some work for us. Those federal programs, they are complicated. They were not initially available to farmers. And so the CARE Project participated in some advocacy effort to make them available to farmers. We've been working with other organizations to make grants available to people. There's just kind of like this endless things, as many of you know. I know many of you are working, and just in everybody's field, like everything takes longer. Everything is, there's more to do. And just to stay on top of everything that's going on and the resources to offer to people has been huge and both wonderful at the same time. So we plan to continue these listening sessions for as long as they're needed. And what we're kind of just starting to think about now is what happens next. How do we start to strategize on what are farmers' needs going to be in a couple of months from now in the fall? And that's when, where a lot of this is just going to continue to unfold, and we'll see what the impacts are. So we're focused on that, but we're also trying to figure out how do we use this pandemic, if you will, this opportunity to strengthen and make more resilient the food system that we have, and particularly focused on local production. So let's turn to.
Great, thank you, Dorothy. Our first question is this: as you look forward to the heart of your season and opening up of our economy, what do you see as the most challenging adjustment or task for you? So Janet and Meg, either of you, if you feel compelled to jump in, I think we have time for both of you to respond.
I'll jump in and just say that it is similar to what I've been mentioning earlier, is that not really knowing what the future will hold, or how, for instance, if farmers markets are going to start, like there's some idea that maybe one of our markets may be opening in mid-July, then it's just hard to plan around the potential of something happening. How do we have the employees to get, just to be like waiting to get that to happen? How do we arrange our schedules around that? And then in terms of growing food, it's such a long process that you really need to plan far in advance, from ordering seeds to figuring out your crop rotation to opening land. And so a lot of that for us, we need to plan so far in advance that it's hard to really pivot so quickly when it comes to a change in opening the economy, for instance, or restaurants are closed for months and suddenly they're back open again. Or if the large private high schools that we sell to are suddenly starting in late summer or not at all. It's really hard with all the unknowns, how to just like react quickly. And like Dorothy said, there's so many farms out there who are so resourceful and practical and are able to figure things out. And something that's been so helpful for me is that in the Hudson Valley, there have been farmer calls that happen every few weeks. And so a lot of the farms are getting on the phone together to talk about, okay, this is happening. How are you responding? How are you responding? What do you think about this? And having like farmer to farmer discussions and resources has been amazing. And it's really helped us think about like how we're going to set up our CSA, how we're going to adapt. And so, yeah, that's what I'll say about that.
So for us, there isn't really a season for selling. There are seasons that entail different things. Right now, we're in the midst of calving, which is incredibly stressful. Most of the time, mummies do it by themselves and do a great job, but when they don't, it takes a lot of intervention and time. And right now, we're going to be thinking about haying. Then we need to think about putting hay aside and wrapping, and then feeding in the winter, and then getting ready for calving. And it's really interesting working with animals because no day is the same. Every day is a surprise. It's not that vegetable farming isn't challenging also in its own way, but I can tell you that the carrot that you left in the row last night is still going to be in that row in the morning. It's not like that with cattle. Day before yesterday at 3 o'clock in the morning, and as I was saying earlier, we got 4 inches of snow yesterday morning. During the night, Ray got up and saw tracks out on the lawn and said the cattle are out. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, we were putting a cow back who had stepped over a fence because the snow had brought it down. So for us, the big challenge is always caring for the animals and thinking about how to make their life as humanely comfortable as possible for every single day. In terms of thinking about the future, as I said, our big challenge is the uncertainty of supply and demand. The co-ops, sorry about that. The co-ops have been selling a tremendous amount of product, but at some point people are going to look in their freezer and they're going to say, we bought a lot of meat. We don't need to buy any. We need to eat out of our freezer. So that's going to change things dramatically. We can't predict how that's going to happen. And so a lot of it, as Meg was saying, is an unknown. And most of all, we just need to try to monitor and adjust. And that's what farmers are good at, is to try to keep going each and every day.
Thank you both. Also, thanks for being able to be here if you were up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yikes. Our next question from Lisa Sebesto, and hi Lisa, is are either of you planning to, and Meg, I think you mentioned this a little bit, are you planning to expand your operations this year if you're able to, given the greater need for local food? Or if you want to, but you can't, what would you need in order to do so?
I can jump in here. As I mentioned earlier, we made a decision pretty early in March that we wanted to increase our crops by 20%. And so we had the time to do that then. I don't think if this happened a lot later, we could just, switch mid-season and say the same thing, but that was able to work out for us, which is exciting. So a lot of it just depends on our greenhouse space and our field space, but we're opening a bit more space in the field, which is exciting, and have been able to figure out how to do that. But that always, it takes a lot of advanced planning. Something else we are doing is we are leasing another piece of land from a neighbor to actually grow on several more acres, about 4 more acres, but that will be a process of turning that land over. So we'll be planting garlic in it this year and growing a few crops, but mostly that will be a piece of land that we'll be using in the future. So again, that's, we hope that the interest and financial stake in local food continues, that people still want to buy locally, that they care about supporting local farmers and keeping money in the local economy. So we're sort of, banking on that as we expand, and really hoping that we can, move that food that we're growing in those extra acreage.
So we are not going to increase production. Talking about time frame, that baby calf that was born this week is not going to be ready to have a baby cow of her own until she's 4 years old. So if we planned to increase right now, we wouldn't see that change until 4 years. In 4 years, I don't know what the market will be. I don't know what the demand will be. We have a unique situation. We are conception to consumption, which means that every piece of meat that you purchase from our farm was born and raised on our farm. So we can't just go and say, let's buy some more feeders and stockers from out in Kansas and put them on the farm and feed them for a couple of months and then slaughter them. We don't do that. And so for us, when you think about long-term, it's really long-term in terms of herd size. And our herd size is pretty much dictated by what Ray and I can manage on our own, how much hay we can produce, how much pasture land we have available. And so what we're hoping is that we can keep the markets that we have. We don't intend to find a lot of new markets. We want to keep our meat sales local. Everything that we raise is sold within 40 miles of where it was born. And so we're just hoping that there will be some stabilization and that we'll be able to weather this pandemic and come out on the other side with the appropriate size herd and the appropriate amount of beef for our customers.
I think we have time for one more quick question, just from Franz. Have either of you considered participating in, or are you already participating in, an online regional food hub service? There have been a couple that have gotten started, and there's a couple that have already established. Mass food delivery is one. The Sutherland Food Collective is another. Food Collaborative is another. Curious to hear your take on those and what the pros and cons are.
Usually pretty good at coming in first, but I think that there are some definite advantages to that, to doing that kind of collective selling. Right now, that probably would not work as well for us, only because we are struggling to fill our orders and our current customers and figuring out how to manage the uncertain market. I think in the future, if there is more stability, that would be something that would be very helpful. I think it's a great idea to help people who don't have access to marketing. I enjoy marketing. That's what I do. And that's what's helped us. Ray is amazing with the animals and the machinery. And he can't write an email. He's never written an email, but I can't run the tractor. And so for me, I've been fortunate enough to be able to do most of our marketing, but I think these collectives are wonderful for people who have skills at growing the food, who love the land, who are producing wonderful food, but marketing might not be their forte, or they might not have someone who can do that. So I'm hoping that does move forward as an initiative. I think it is a great way of the future, and maybe one of the best parts that will come out of these challenging times.
Also a huge opportunity there. We're currently not really participating in anything that's exactly like a food hub. I think what's happening with the virtual market that we have been participating in is, something akin to that, where there's many producers being involved and it's all organized through an online system. I think there's a lot of potential for that to grow, but I think it will take a lot of time for customers to get used to the process and really make it worth it for all the farmers participating to do the deliveries and to make sure that they're moving enough produce. There's some interesting things happening in the region with sort of like delivery services that are combining orders from many farms going to farther distances, so each farm doesn't need to bring a whole truckload of produce or even a half truckload down to somewhere like Westchester County or something like that. So there are already initiatives that have been happening for several years, and I think those are just going to get more attention and more participation from farmers as we explore different outlets and new ways of doing things.
Great. Thank you so much.
My only concern about that is losing the interaction personally with the farmer. And I'm not saying that that would necessarily happen, but I think it needs to be intentional enough so that people can still know their farmer and they can still interact and ask questions about the product and feel connected with where the food is grown and how it's raised. I've seen situations where conglomerates and distributors, it starts out as looking like a wonderful opportunity for farmers, but it ends up being a wonderful opportunity for the distributor and not really so beneficial for the farmer. So I think as long as it's intentional and keeps the quality of know your farmer in the process, it can work.
And I think some of these hubs or organizations that are run by collectives of farmers as opposed to a separate business have probably been the most successful because they really understand the businesses and also the bottom line. And I think, you know, the CSA model, it's getting more and more attention now. It's like having a comeback, which is great. And that really preserves the on-farm connection, the connection to knowing your product, like Janet was talking about earlier. And I think that's really important and not something that you can get from an online platform necessarily.
Great, thank you both so much. I realize we're getting close to our time. So Dorothy, do you want to pop back in and wrap us up here? You had a couple other things that you wanted to share.
Sure. Thank you, Jenny, and thank you, Janet and Megan. It's a good conversation. I wish we could keep going, but we can't. But I want to thank everybody for their time and attention. And really just to reiterate what Janet and Megan were saying, you know, it's a really crazy time. And there are so many uncertainties out there, and they're huge, and they're going to keep evolving. So everything that you can do, if you can continue to support local farms and foods businesses that you're near you, or reach out to new ones and figure out how you can support them, you know, buying their products, you know, visiting their farm stands when they will be putting up farm stands soon, and at least in some states, farmers markets will be open. Please do everything that you can. And of course, if you can also make a contribution to the Carrot Project to help support this work, and we'd appreciate that too. So I just want to thank you for your time and attention, and I'll turn it back over to Jenny.